And welcome back to the Keeping Up with the Joneses podcast. I'm your host, Jared, along with my co host, Doug.
I'm Douglas Graves. Welcome back, guys, to our Christmas edition of the podcast.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody out there listening. And we got a pretty good podcast for you guys today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Chargers game. We're going to preview kind of what's coming up with the Commanders, and we're going to talk about the future of this roster, which I'm kind of excited about. So let's get into it. First, we'll talk about the Chargers game. I thought the offensive line looked pretty good in that game. What'd you think?
I thought the offensive line looked pretty well. I'm not going to say, I don't want to say as a whole that they looked good, but there were key parts of the line and a lot of certain drives that they looked all right. I know you mentioned, you alluded to one of the reasons you thought that was the case with the switch for Tyler Smith. I agree 100%. And I don't know, like I'm gonna slow down and I'm not gonna say that they were great or that they were good as a whole,
Sure.
but there were some individual play that was good and some drives as a whole that were good. So
Yeah. I think the thing I noticed was Dak had more time in that game. He had he could actually kind of scope the field a little bit and not have to settle for his checkdowns as quickly as he had to the last couple weeks. Of course, it didn't matter in the end of it all because the defense is just so awful. But
I think honestly part of that too, and I don't want to take away from our offensive line at all because they did have one of their better games. But part of that is that the Chargers are one of the least blitzing teams in the NFL with a
true,
blitz rate of around like 17%, I think is what it is. So I
yeah,
think maybe that had a lot to do with why Dak seemed to have more time, especially considering last week he got blitzed like I think right at 50% of the times.
yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read some. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think the Chargers blitzed him like 6 times the entire
Yeah.
game. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're one of the
it's hard
least
to judge
blitzing
that.
teams.
Yeah, it's hard to judge how well the offensive line played. If we had that same orientation with Tyler Smith at left tackle and we played against the Vikings again, I think we'd probably see a little difference there. But honestly, it looked like well, I'll say this: Dak Prescott's a traditional pocket passer at this point in his career. He's not agile. He's not going to escape a bunch of sacks, and he does still. He's still got that ability, but he's not your Kyler Murray. He's not your Lamar Jackson. I think you're talking about a more traditional upright pocket passer, and you need a solid left tackle for a guy like Dak Prescott. He needs to know that he doesn't have to worry about what's going on his left side behind him. And
100%.
so as long as he's got that, I think he can navigate the middle pressure or the right side pressure. He just a little bit more traditional, and I don't think he can sense the pressure coming from the left side as well. So honestly, the offensive line looked pretty good, and we're going to talk about Tyler Smith and that transition here in a little bit. But first half, offense looked great. They were moving the ball at will. They were aggressive on early downs. I loved the run game. It seemed like they were having a lot of success with the run game, especially in the first half. And I want to say Javante Williams, I know he kept playing, but I think he hurt that stinger in his neck again. And so I think they ended up having to put Malik Davis in a little bit more than they probably wanted to and run with Hunter Lipke a little bit more. But when he was on the field and the offensive line and when they were running the ball, they looked really good, especially in the first half. So, and if you look at some of the analytics out there, the Cowboys they rank pretty high in their run grades on offensive line. It's their pass blocking grades that are pretty awful across the board. But like you said, they didn't blitz very much, and I think that played a really large role in how much better the offensive line looked. But talk about how they didn't score at all in the second half, and I think
Oh
that
god.
it's frustrating, but we were talking about it a little bit, and I think a lot of it had to do with just the aggressiveness that Shoddy played with in the second half. He was calling a little bit more aggressive play calls, and I love that personally. Um, but I think it's one of those things where the game is, or not the game, but the season is over. You might as well take some chances and see what you actually are made of. So I
Yeah,
like
see
the
what you've got out of the
aggressiveness.
players.
Right. Yeah, and, so I wanna get into the Commanders. We're not gonna touch much on the Chargers game. It was kind of a mess, and really, with the season being over, there's not much to really talk about there, but we'll get into the Commanders game a little bit. The Commanders aren't good. I think they've won 4 games so far this year. A lot of that obviously has to do with Jaden Daniels being hurt most of the year, and also, even when he has played, he hasn't looked that good this year. I think he's gonna be a good quarterback in the NFL for a decade plus. It's just a matter of staying healthy for him, but without him, their offense is definitely kinda stuck in the mud. They really don't scare you too much, but I will say this about the Commanders, they fight for Dan Quinn. And, you saw that with Dallas when he was here as our defensive coordinator. Even in the games where they were getting beat down pretty bad, we can look back at that Packers playoff game as a prime example. They didn't quit. They never quit. They always fought for Dan Quinn. I think you could see bad scheming in those kind of moments, but they always fight for the guy, and they'll stick around in games late if you're not careful. But they do run the ball well. The Commanders like to run the football a lot. And their offensive line is better at pass protection than they are run blocking, especially with Laramie Tunzel on the left side of their offensive line. But they like to run the football, but they're really built for passing on that offensive line. So I think it kind of gets them in some weird situations sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what do you did you hear about Josh Johnson starting in this game?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so Josh Johnson, and I honestly had to look him up. He's been around for a while. He's not a new quarterback at all. He's 39. He's a career backup. And his best year was probably 2021, where he played for the Jets for a few games, and then he was traded, I wanna say, to the Ravens. And I think he had 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 3 or 4 games, so he can play ball, but, I'm telling you right now, man, if this defense makes him look like prime Tom Brady, my goodness, I don't think I can handle it again.
No, I will. This will be one of the few games that this year that where I legit just turn the game off and don't watch for the rest of the night if that's what happens. It's not like we'll be missing anything if he starts looking the way JJ McCarthy did, a couple weeks ago. It's just going to be the same old. They're going to, end up outscoring us because the defense just gives up way too many points, and Dak can't keep up with what the defense is giving up. It's the same story that we've seen all year. It doesn't matter how good of a team it is or how bad of a team it is. With this defense, that just seems to be the identity of the team.
That's true. It's so frustrating too as a fan to watch it because, at some point, the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
You would think at some point Eberflus would just say, "You know what I'm doing is just not working. I don't care if I've got to try 15 different schemes and throw a completely different playbook at these guys. We got to try something." I mean,
Something.
your job is on the line and your future is on the line too because you were just fired as a head coach, and this is kind of the path that most coaches take. They end up being defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators, and they usually have a little success and maybe get another head coaching gig in a few years. I don't see this guy getting a coaching gig at all at this point, the way he's playing and or coaching. And maybe he's just a linebacker coach. Maybe that's all he really needs to focus on.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but if he was just a linebacker coach, wouldn't Kenneth Murray be more than dog shit? Like, I'm not trying to. I thought that was funny. I'm sorry.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But he was a great linebacker coach. I
Right.
think he was our coach during the Sean Lee era for a while, and he is a good linebacker coach. But I don't know what's going on with this Kenneth Murray situation, man. And we don't want to harp on that. We've talked about it a few times, but man,
Yeah.
it's honestly it's so sad to see a player play this bad and just be forced onto the field because the coach he's just not comfortable playing other people.
Yeah.
And it's the old saying that if your scheme can't accommodate all types of players, then your scheme's the problem. And so he's got to change something. And at this point, it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, you would think, knowing that your career is pretty much on the line, you got to change
Uh-huh.
some stuff up. It's just crazy to me that he's kind of ran the same kind of defense out there. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. It seems like, Aaron Whitecotton is gonna be, I guess you could say, running the defense from the sideline. Kinda funny, I don't think this happened before we did our last podcast, so if you haven't heard, I'm sure you saw it by now, but Aaron Whitecotton is staying on the sideline, and I wanna say the word they used was, I don't know what it was, pioneering the defense, something like that. Basically, they were saying they're giving him a 3-game interview is ultimately what
Right.
it comes down to, and based on game 1, he ain't getting the job.
No, we're going outside.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him either. Aaron Whitecotton I think he's a good defensive line coach. I don't think he had the talent to show that early in the season and probably still doesn't, at least at edge, but I think he is a good coach. I don't think that I don't at some point, when we get to the end of the season and we start reviewing our staff, I think you just gotta reboot this defense altogether. We don't want the same concepts. We don't want the same conservative, scared coaching mindset. If in Aaron Whitecotton may not be that at all. I don't know really. We haven't seen enough of him, but based on what we have seen, I think I'd be more than okay with just wiping the slate clean on the defensive coaching staff.
Yeah. The thing is, what comes into play then is, do you blame it on the coaches and you allow all the players a kind of free, get out of jail free card, and you keep the guys you have and don't worry about cutting anybody? Or do you acknowledge that it's some of it is on the players too? And if that's the case, who do we start? Who is coming back next year and who's not? So
Yeah. It's definitely a mixed bag of blame. I mean, I don't think Eberflus is that awful. I think he is. I don't like his mindset. I don't like his coaching styles personally. If I were in some magical world, the GM of the Cowboys, I wouldn't choose him purely based off of his scheme and based off of his coaching style, let alone the performance he's had so far. So to me, I think you wipe the a slate clean anyways, because if you really want a truly good defense, he doesn't have the right scheme for that.
right.
So, but the blame can definitely go around. There's some veteran guys on this team that should have played a lot better this year, that got paid to play better this year, and
Hmm.
they didn't live up to par. I mean, number one being Oso Digizua. The guy got a huge contract this offseason, and he's been by far, well, I shouldn't say that. He is definitely the third best defensive tackle in this roster, and it's not particularly close. And I don't even
Right.
know if I'd say third anymore. I think Perion Winfrey could take that third spot if you ask me. I don't know how that contract is structured, but maybe they have it out after next season. I know the Cowboys tend to build a lot of their contracts with easy outs, with less
Right.
dead money after a couple seasons. I think that's kind of the same thing with Deron Bland. So if maybe next year he's having another bad season, you might consider cutting him, and I don't think it would hurt you on the salary cap too much. But I think it's a mixed bag of blame for both parties there. The defense did not play well, and at the end of the day, Eberflus is going to be the scapegoat, and I think he deserves that title as well. Not saying that as a defense of him, but there's some players that the Cowboys need to have some very serious conversations with about their performance and make some tough decisions going into next year for sure.
Yeah, maybe some pay cuts if you don't really feel good about getting rid of people outright. Maybe some key people need to disagree that they're not as good as contract says and take some pay cuts.
Yeah, and
I would
that's a
be okay with
conversation
that.
they can have for sure. Now, the players obviously can say go fly a kite, but you also don't have to continue carrying them on your roster either. But
Yeah.
I will say I did notice that White Cotton seemed to blitz a lot more in this game. I don't know if you really noticed that or not, but they blitzed a
Yeah,
lot, but it just didn't
41%
work.
of the time in the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't
So,
work.
yeah, to add to that, I'll tell you exactly how much it didn't work. Justin Herbert he was 12 for 16 for 143 yards and a touchdown with 0 sacks when they were blitzing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's embarrassing, man. I bet the stats probably look pretty good any other time too, but yeah, that you can't have that. When you're blitzing, you know you're gonna lose some coverage in the back end. You gotta get home on some of those blitzes or at least affect the quarterback. And this is something I've heard a lot of people talking about, and we haven't really talked about it either, but uh, the Cowboys get in the backfield a lot. They will get to the quarterback. They just cannot finish sacks.
Right.
I don't understand if is it a coaching technique thing? Is it something where they're just being taught to chase the quarterback and not consider the angles? I don't know what it is, but they'll get past the offensive lineman and the quarterback will just make a simple step up in the pocket and break the sack. And next thing you know, you got a 40-yard bomb getting thrown over your head.
Or you got a sack in the backfield and you only get one arm on him. Next thing you know, the quarterback's rolling out of the pocket, and throwing the ball down the field when he should have been tackled for a 5, 6 yard sack.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this much about Aaron White Cotton if he's gonna continue coaching these next couple games, he needs to continue blitzing. And I think you're gonna have games where you blitz. I mean, you saw the Vikings, they blitzed, what was it, like 50 something percent of the time against the Cowboys?
Yep. I think it was like 51% of the time.
And not all those got home. Dak was only sacked, I think, a couple times or maybe even one time in that game. They're not
Yeah,
gonna
one
get
time.
home all the time. Like, that's not the point of blitzing. The point of blitzing is to affect the quarterback.
Yep.
If you get a sack, great. But the minimum of a blitz should be the quarterback had to make a fast decision, and hopefully your cornerbacks can get lucky or be in the right position, not really even lucky, to at least make a play on the ball because the quarterback had to speed up his clock a little bit. That's all I
Right.
want. I'm not asking you to get 10 sacks a game. I'm just saying affect the quarterback. And so far, they haven't even been able to do that with the blitzing. So, but you got to keep trying. Again, you've tried the conservative, cornerbacks playing 10 yards off the receiver, letting them dink and dunk underneath all game. I like the fact that they at least tried to blitz. I think they'll have more success if they keep doing it. Again, it really, to me, it doesn't matter what Aaron White Cotton does. I think you just need a fresh slate on this defense, though. But
Yeah, I
if they
agree.
want to beat the Commanders, you got a 39-year-old career backup quarterback this week who, you know, he ran a 4.4 in the combine. He's fast, but he's also 39. I doubt he's got a 4.4 speed anymore. I think he's going to be a little bit more of a statue. You just need to get back there and affect him, especially a career backup. There's no way you just let the guy sit back there and pick you apart. I mean, hopefully, but that's probably what's going to happen.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this though. Do you actually roll out an actual defensive effort against this team, or do the playoffs are out of the picture? So do we even really care? Like, do we want to beat the Commanders?
Well, yeah, as a fan, I would prefer they lose,
Right.
of course, but that's just not real life, and
Yeah.
you're talking about guys who are putting tape on film for future teams to look at them.
Contracts. Yeah, that's true.
And Jadeveon Clowney, you think he's gonna go out there and play, at 50%? No, he's gonna try to get a couple sacks because if he gets 2 or 3 more sacks, he's probably gonna get a pretty good payday next year somewhere, whether that be with Dallas or anywhere else. So, yeah,
Hopefully with
these guys are.
Dallas,
Yeah, I hope so
more
too.
we need more Jadavon Clowney type
I
players
agree
around.
completely. And so yeah, so that's how I think about it. I mean, yeah, as a fan, it's nice to fantasize about the idea of getting a better draft pick and all that, but the reality of it is these guys are pro athletes. They want to win football games and some of these guys won't be here next year. They're trying to put good tape out there so teams will be willing to pay them more. So that's it. They're going to try to win. And that's the way
Right.
it should be for culture, for the future and everything. But yeah, we talked about that before. I would prefer they lose just simply so we can, because I think you're looking at a difference. I think right now we pick at 13 or something like that if we stayed exactly the same. If they can get up to like 11, 10 or 11, I think you start looking at some better prospects. I think there's a big
Yeah.
difference between pick 10 or 11 and pick 13 to 15.
Yeah, like a Caleb Downs.
It's possible. I don't see him slipping past the Commanders, but it's possible.
Right.
Arvell Reese might slip down. You never know. There's some players that, you know, they may get pushed down the draft board just enough to where you could look at those guys and you wouldn't have considered them available looking at your draft picks right now. So, yeah, as a
Right.
fan, I fantasize about that, but it's just not realistic. They're gonna try to win these games, and to be honest with you, the Commanders are so bad and the Giants are so bad, they probably will win these next 2 games, and I think
Yep.
they'll be 8-1, I think, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably gonna get you around the 15th, 16th pick, and if the Packers continue falling apart, you might get, like, the mid to low 20s, so it's very possible they could lose just from being really bad, but I think the Cowboys, even at their worst, are better than the Commanders and the Giants right now, so
Definitely better than the Giants, for
yeah, I
sure.
think we're gonna probably win these next 2 games. That's enough game talk about that, so, the season's over anyways. I think I'd really like to just talk about some personnel decisions the Cowboys have coming up, and we alluded to it earlier, we're talking about the move of Tyler Smith to left tackle from left guard, and, there's been a lot of debate if you're on Cowboys Twitter, if you're watching some of the content out there, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people want him to stay at left guard, and I completely get the sentiment there because he's a top 3 left guard. He's an all pro. He's the best, one of the best at what he does at that position. Would he be even top 15 at left tackle? I don't know.
I think so, but
I think he would. I think if you give him a year to train at that position, especially give him a full offseason with, maybe Duke Manyweather, some of these, excellent offensive line coaches, I 100% could see it happening. But
right.
I don't think he wants to play left tackle.
Right.
He wants to be a left guard. He knows he's an all pro at left guard, and if you watch him play left tackle, he looks like a guard playing tackle. He's a little bit
Right.
bulkier up top, he's a little heavier up top. Sorry, he's a little too top heavy, I think, to play tackle. He's perfect for left guard. I think that's the
Right.
position he needs to stay at. I will, and this is what I want to throw at you. Is it worth for this team and where Dak Prescott, you got to use context because if we're
Right.
talking about Madden where it doesn't matter, sure, you could move him to left tackle. But in real life, in the Cowboy situation using context, is it better, even if he doesn't want to play left tackle? Is it better for the continuity of the entire offensive line and the kind of scheme that Shoddy likes to run to have a left tackle that's worth having on the roster? That's the question.
To see, and to me, it is because we all know how important tackles are to a quarterback's success and how important quarterbacks are to a whole team's success. So, in my opinion, yes, I think now as long as it's not going to cause any drama within the team because we don't need any more of that, I say yes. I hate maybe that he's being forced that he'll get forced into playing a position he's not exactly wanting to play, but if it's better for the team, it's better for the team. So,
Yeah, and that's just how it's always been in the NFL. It's a business. At the end of the day, if the team's going to have more success with you at left tackle, I'm sorry you don't want to play there, but that's where we need you.
right.
I don't know what the Cowboys are really planning. I think this is just a trial run to see if over the next, 2 games, 3 games total, he does start to show that he can transition to that position because, he hasn't played that position in a long time, and you could definitely tell his technique it wasn't right. He was playing left guard technique at left tackle. His feet were a little sloppy. He's not used to having to kick out so wide. You also another thing to consider at guard because you're inside, it's a little bit more covered up. You can get away with some more grabbing. And he got called for a holding, I think, on one of the touchdowns in that game too. I think that was in the second half too, which is part of why they didn't score at all in the second half.
Right.
And so you saw a couple times where he just didn't look natural at the position. But again, he's super athletic. He's very talented. You could not convince me that with a full offseason and some training on that position that he couldn't be a top 10 left guard in the NFL. I think or left tackle. I think he could be a top 5 left tackle if he wanted to. I think he's just more comfortable at left guard. But, we'll see what happens with that situation and
So something to add to that situation, and it's gonna kind of cross over into draft talk as well. Who do they have at guard coming out this year? Are there any like great guards coming out that maybe the Cowboys are looking at like, hey, if Tyler Smith, we probably won't get one of the high end left tackles. We may end up getting one of the, mediocre left tackles that we're not sure about, and we'll be in the same place we are, now with Guyton, even though I think in the long run he'll be okay. Maybe they move Tyler Smith to left tackle and there's a premium guard in this draft that they may plan on targeting, and that fills both positions for you. You move one guy to tackle to replace Terrence Steele. Who cares? I mean, I don't really care which one you try at left tackle first, Tyler Smith or Guyton. Maybe Guyton moves over to right tackle. And then the guard that you draft this year, if there is one that's available that is, worth it, slides in and replaces Tyler Smith. And then you've got a whole line of, players that you have confidence in.
yeah. There's a couple guards coming out of this draft that are probably first round talents. There's one from Penn State. I don't even want to try to say his first name, but Lone is his last name. He could probably be a really good left guard in the league. And there's a kid from Bama coming out, Jaden Roberts, that could be pretty good too.
Right.
You know,
So basically, I'm wondering if maybe the Cowboys have more confidence if they're going to go offensive line, if they have more confidence in picking a guard this year than the tackles they're going to have to choose from. Basically, is kind of what I'm getting at.
yeah, what I realistically could see happening, I don't think the Cowboys are going to invest anything else in the offensive line in the draft. And I kinda hope they don't, to be honest with you. At some point, you gotta give up there. I mean, and I don't mean give up entirely, I just mean that you've invested enough. Like, the
Right.
offensive line should be playing significantly better than it is. I think injuries play a part in that too with, Tyler Booker. He missed a lot of games early in the season, and you're starting to see him find his groove, and I think he's a Pro Bowl right guard. I know he didn't get selected for that, but I think year one, if you look at his full body of work, he should qualify for a Pro Bowl. I think he's one of the best right guards in the NFL. So you got to hit there, and then at left guard, obviously you got Tyler Smith. Sorry,
Booker.
yeah. No, I was talking about Tyler Smith at left guard, but
Oh, okay.
the realistic scenario that I could see happening is if you move Tyler Smith to left tackle, you can find a replacement level guard in free agency for probably $6 to $8 million a year that will do fine. Will they be as good as Tyler Smith or Tyler Booker? No, obviously not. But I think you could find a replacement in free agency for left guard that would not ruin the continuity of this offensive line. At left tackle, if you move Tyler Smith there, I personally feel like you have your secure left tackle for another 10 years.
Right.
Have your Tyron Smith. You don't have to worry about that position other than injuries. What would probably be the most sensible thing to do if you're going to make this switch in a way to not have to invest more draft capital into the positions would be to move Tyler Smith to left tackle, go find you a free agent left guard, or maybe TJ Bass isn't that bad. I don't think he played horrible. I don't think he's good, but again, he didn't ruin the game for the Cowboys, and that's all you really need out of your guards, really. You just don't want them to get beat so bad they ruin your game plan.
Right.
I think tackles are the more premium position in the NFL. So, you got Tyler Smith at left tackle, TJ Bass or replacement at left guard. Cooper Beebe, you got him for another year, I think maybe 2 years on contract. Right guard, you got your right guard of the future. And then you could move Tyler Guyton, who played some right tackle in college, to right tackle for you now.
Right.
Again, I think he needs an offseason to prepare for that because he hasn't played right tackle in a few years now, but I think he could be a good right tackle for you in the NFL. And
Right.
that would probably be the easiest way to reboot this offensive line without having to spend another premium draft pick on it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Which
I
we've
don't know.
done plenty of that over the past 10, 15 years
Right.
between Frederick and Martin and Booker and Smith and all Guyton and all those guys. We've definitely invested a lot of premium draft capital into offensive line over the past,
Yeah, for sure, a
2.
lot, a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider about Tyler Guyton moving to left tackle, something I read earlier this week, it's actually not legal for them to do that. He can fill in spots, of course, but the way the contracts are set up in the NFL these days, you're paid based on your positional value. So at left guard, the highest paid left guard in the NFL is Tyler Smith at 24 million a year. The highest paid left tackle, I think, is Rashawn Slater. Could be wrong on that. It's tackle, not left tackle, but Rashawn Slater, I think, is getting 28.5 million a year. So if he did make the full-time switch to left tackle, the Cowboys would have to sign a new contract with him. It's not even legal for
Okay,
them to
see,
force him at left tackle.
that is one of the dumbest rules that I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I get
That's
it. It's
the
it
dumbest
is
shit.
yeah, at the end of the day, the team should be able to make the decisions they need out of their players, but
Mhm.
I get it. You wouldn't want to be classified as a linebacker if you're really a pass rusher. You want to be classified as an edge rusher because then you're the top paid linebacker is getting what 22, 24 million a year. The top paid edge rusher is getting 40 million, 40 whatever it is Micah Parsons is getting was it 45 million a year.
Something like that.
So it's a big difference. Like you don't want to be classified in the position that you're not playing. So I understand
Right.
that to a degree. But yeah, that's just the way the rules are set up. And so if they did move him to left tackle permanently, they would have to sign a new contract with him. And he would probably demand close to 30 million a year. So that's probably not going to happen. Just to be quite honest with you, I don't see that happen. And I think the Cowboys are experimenting with it to see if it's going to work and if it
Right.
really improves the offensive line to have better left tackle play, which I think it did. And so what they're looking at is okay, if having a better left tackle really does change how well we block, then maybe it is worth a first round pick. And of course, I'm tired of spending first round picks on offensive linemen, but at the same time, this is a top two, top three offense in the NFL who's been derailed by bad left tackle play a lot. If it makes sense to just go ahead and get your premium left tackle talent because you saw how much better your offensive line played with a good left tackle, then maybe you just keep Tyler Smith at left guard and then you do spend a first round pick at left tackle. So I don't know if the Cowboys are really planning on keeping him there as much as they're just wanting to see, does this make a big difference? Is having a true top tier talented left tackle really going to make a difference for our offense, or should we just keep putting Guyton out there and seeing if he can progress? Which I think he
Right.
will. I think he'll be a good tackle in the NFL. So honestly, that's where I'm at with it. I think it's probably more them just experimenting to see if it's really going to help them or not to have a good left tackle, which I think it will. I think Dak Prescott needs an elite left tackle to be. He had a great season anyways, but I think he could have an elite next level season if he had a solid left tackle behind him.
Yeah, I agree.
All right,
Which he
so
hasn't really had one since, you know, and I would I don't know, I'd be kinda weary to say not Tyler Smith, Tyron Smith. Yeah, I mean, he had Tyron Smith at the beginning of his career, but Tyron was on the way out. He was constantly injured. So I honestly don't think Dak's ever had a premium or even, great left tackle to block for him. So
yeah, you know what? Actually, I thought about that earlier about Tyron Smith. He's 35, and we've been seeing a lot of these older guys come back and play.
no.
Now, hold on, hold on. I'm not talking about a permanent solution. I'm just saying, what if you draft a young guy, maybe the Cowboys, just theoretical here. So follow me here. What if the Cowboys trade that second first round pick back to maybe get a second and a third round pick? Okay, so they have a full draft again, right? What
Mhm,
if they do that and then they draft maybe like a Tyler Guyton 2.0 kind of project player, and they move Tyler Guyton
mhm.
to right tackle and give him a full offseason to train there, and then they have their left tackle of hopefully the future. If they draft somebody in the second or third round they think would fall to them. And then Tyron Smith is your immediate fix for 1 year. And it gives him some experience. It gives Tyron Smith, it gives him a mentor, whoever this young guy is in this theory that I have. It gives him some good mentorship from a great left tackle. Tyron Smith's only 35. He was injured a lot, but he's also a freak athlete. He was always, I mean, he looked like a bodybuilder at left tackle. The guy's
Yeah,
in excellent shape. So I
yeah,
100% believe if he had a season to kind of rest his body, I think he could play a full season or maybe at least 12 games of a full season, right?
right.
Maybe, who knows? But again, I just want to float the idea out there. What if the Cowboys say, "Hey, Tyron Smith, why don't you come back and mentor this guy? Be our secure left tackle while we make a playoff run. And if it doesn't work out, you got one more year and $20 million in your pocket, and we all walk away happy. But then the Cowboys have continuity at left tackle. I think that's another possibility that I haven't really heard floated around, but you just never know. I mean, it's very
Right.
possible.
Where was he at this year?
I think he was out of the league this year. I think he took a year off, or maybe I don't know if he's officially retired, but the last team I remember him playing for was the Jets. So
Yeah,
I don't think he's playing anymore.
that's I didn't think he was either.
Yeah. And which again, I don't think is because he can't play. I think it's because he's tired of playing. His body was wore down and he wanted some rest, which is totally understandable. You've had a great career. Go rest, man. And yeah, the
Yeah,
Cowboys drafted him, I think, at 20 years old. So he had a long career.
yeah,
But yeah, just an idea I wanted to float out there. I haven't heard anybody else say that, but I kind of thought about that earlier today. What if that's kind of their behind the scenes plan? They just want to maybe draft a project left tackle, move Tyler Guyton over to right tackle, and then maybe bring Tyron Smith in for a season to see if he could help you win a Super Bowl. And
yeah.
I don't think that'd be a bad idea.
Get him in there. Let Jerry Jones get him in a room. Be like, yeah, we're just signing you to the typical retirement day long contract. And the next thing you know, he signs it, and it's actually a whole year. And it's like, all right, lock in, get ready for the season.
Yep, get in the weight room, buddy. Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I would love that,
Yeah,
honestly. I think that could be a really smart move if they really want to make an all in push next year. Jerry Jones says he's all in, right? That
yeah.
was what, 2 seasons ago now, and, you see what it's got us
I
so
think he
far.
might have said that like 10 years ago, actually. So,
It's the name of the podcast, we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, man.
oh
That's all
yeah,
we're
for
doing around here.
sure.
You never know what's going on in that man's head, but
No,
so
dementia. I think is exactly what's going
there's
on.
there's not much going on right now, I think is the problem. So I wanna talk about the secondary, and, again, I think a lot of this will depend on who the coach is next year. I think the right way to go about it would be to get you a new defensive coordinator and then let him tell you what kind of players he needs for his style of defense. But I was just kinda looking around at what's coming up in free agency, even in the draft too, we could talk about that too, but do the Cowboys, do you think they can fix the secondary in one offseason? Okay.
No, I think that they can get in a very good direction in one off season, but it would be naive to say that they can fix all of the problems in one off season because like, I would just be okay with them getting back to the level that they played at last year, you know? So, I think that that is more obtainable than the fact of them just completely changing face in one season. Now, if the right players, if we got the right players, I know one of the guys that you had kinda mentioned was Cross. If we got him, we drafted well, and maybe we did get a swing tackle or somebody to just completely replace Steele, then maybe. I mean, that maybe we do, shore up all those deficiencies in one season, but that's a lot of perfect moves that have to happen one after another. So
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening all in one season. So
Yeah, and like you said, man, I don't think they need to, like, wipe the slate clean there, and again, like you said, I think if they could just get back to last year, like how they weren't great, but they weren't giving up huge plays over and over again. And I think a lot of that was the Micah Parsons effect. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
Quentin Williams is an elite defensive tackle, Pro Bowler, All Pro. He's amazing at what he does, but he can't. It's just the position he plays. You can't possibly affect the game like you can as an edge rusher at defensive tackle. He does affect the game a ton, but I think you just see the difference in having a pass rusher who relentlessly play in, play out is going to pressure the quarterback in some way. And
Right.
even without having to blitz, you're going to get pressure on the quarterback because you can double team Micah Parsons and it still doesn't matter, right?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of the secondary issues I wouldn't say be fixed, but I think they would be patched a little bit by better pass rushers. And so if you want to get in the idea of going all in, I mean, there's some free agents I think you could look at. And another one I wanted to throw out there was if the Cowboys are truly all in and Jerry Jones is looking at the clock saying, man, I only got a few years left in this thing, go get Trey
Or to
Hendrickson.
live.
Yeah, go get Trey Hendrickson. Go
Yeah,
get you
Trey
an elite pass rusher. Sign
yeah,
him to a 1 or 2 year deal. Don't sign him for 5 years or anything. Just get him a 1 or 2 year deal. Pay him 30 million a year. It's a lot of money, I know, but you can swing it. You just got to make some tough decisions around the corner. Give him 25, $30 million. He's going to want more than that. Probably closer to 30, 35 million a year. Give him a 2 year deal and try to win a Super Bowl. And see if he can stay healthy, which I think he has most of his career. I know he's dealing with the hip stuff now. If he can stay healthy for you, man, you got a pass rush because you're
yeah.
you're looking at Donovan Ezeraku was, in my opinion, probably the most complete pass rusher in the draft last year. And he hasn't been a great pass rusher in the NFL yet, but there's no way that he's going to go from being probably the best pass rusher in college football last year to being a mediocre pass rusher in the NFL. I think he's going to figure out how to rush the passer next year. And I think you saw after maybe like what week 7, 8, they started playing him pretty much full time. Now
Mhm.
they still rotate. That's just an Eberflus thing, which I'm not necessarily against, but I think you keep your best players on the field as much as you can at the same time. But
Yeah.
that being said, I think if he started playing full time, he was the starter and played probably 40 plus snaps every game the last 7, 8, maybe 10 weeks. I think he's getting more experience, and I think by next year with a full off season to get a little bit more weight on him, I think he's going to be able to affect the passer as next year. So I don't
Yeah,
know
see,
that
I
you need to go
agree.
crazy, at defensive end or anything, but I think you'll patch a lot of the secondary issues with a better pass rush.
Yeah, especially in his case, that the last part that you said was the getting a off season underneath him and getting in the weight room and getting a little bit stronger. Because whenever it comes to Ezraku, that's really the only like knock that I could say is that sometimes it seems like he gets kind of pushed out of the play because he's just not as strong as you would want some
Mhm.
guys to be at defensive end.
It's
So,
surprising. He's
right.
surprisingly strong because he looks
For how small he is,
undersized.
yes, yes. I think that after an offseason, an NFL offseason in the weight room and stuff, and just him figuring out from all these NFL coaches how to just maneuver and get the most out of his size, I think he'll be a lot better next year.
I
I
agree
could
with
see
that.
him I could see him being a 10 to 15 sack guy going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I mean, he should be. If he can translate some of that stuff he did in college to the NFL, he should be at least a 10 plus sack player, I think. And is that elite? Probably not. But I think if you're getting 10 to 15 sacks, you're affecting the quarterback consistently. And that's really all the
Right.
Cowboys need to at least patch some of their secondary issues. And I was also I was looking it up about Nick Cross because I think if I again, I'm not a Colts fan. I don't watch them very much, but I think Nick Cross is more of a free safety, and I don't really think the Cowboys need a free safety as much as they need a better strong safety because
Yeah,
I've seen way too much of Donovan Wilson. He's been around probably 2 or 3 years too long for me. I
I
think it's
agree.
time to make an upgrade at strong safety because and it's partially its scheme because for some reason Eberflus thinks that he's a cover guy and he's not. I mean,
He's a liability in coverage.
he's more of a down in the box hybrid safety linebacker.
Yeah,
And if he plays that role, he's a downhill guy. He hits hard, he plays hard, but he takes terrible angles and he can't cover worth a singular shit. So if they make an upgrade, it should be getting rid of Donovan Wilson, not really Malik Hooker. And in that regard, I think you could look at guys like Tyron Matthew is going to be probably available. I don't think the Chiefs are going to keep him. Jabril Peppers might be available, and I think both of those guys would be at least at least a good 20-30% upgrade over Donovan Wilson.
Right.
Even though they're both on the back end of their careers too, but I think those guys could cover better, and I think they'll take better angles at least, and they're good tacklers. So, if you're gonna do any of those things, I think, upgrade your strong safety and get Tyrann Mathieu or Jabril Peppers, and I think you're rolling at safety. And then I didn't there's only one corner that I really like coming out of free agency, and the Seahawks may re-sign him, but Tariq Woolen is probably the only name at corner, at least not retread guys, right? Like, you could go get Stephon Gilmore at 35, and he would probably play good enough, in a support role. But if you want to go get somebody who's going to be here for more than a year and will actually help you, I think Tariq Woolen might be the only corner that could be available if the Seahawks don't
Yeah.
re-sign him that could fill that role. So, you're probably looking at. I
From
just
what
don't
I've
think.
seen, I don't think they will either. I think he ends up walking.
Yeah, that's very possible. The problem is, can you risk drafting a cornerback and relying on a rookie cornerback, even if it's a top tier first round pick guy? Can you risk going into next season with Deron Bland and Siobhan Ravel and whatever corner you draft, whether that be Jermod McCoy, Avion Terrell, whoever it's going to be? Is that worth the risk, or would you rather just go get the solid veteran who could fill in and play solid? I don't know.
No, see, for me, you're gonna go with the young guy, and that's only because I mean, one of those other guys that you mentioned is also a rookie guy this year, in Ravel. So realistically, the only veteran that we have at the position who even played this year was Deron Bland because Diggs.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody really knows what the hell he was doing all
pretty
year,
much it
but
was just Deron Bland and Kalen Carson.
right, and Kalen Carson's what, a second, third year guy at the most. So
I think so.
I think you go ahead and draft because a Stephon Gilmore or somebody like that is not gonna move the needle enough as far as the secondary to really make any more difference. Now
Right.
with the draft, you do run the risk of drafting a Morris Claiborne. We drafted him at
Sure.
what, eighth overall and
I think it was fourth.
never
I think it was four
yeah,
overall.
something like that. I knew it was in the singular digits,
Hmm.
but it's like and we never got close to what we saw from him in college.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
that's my thing. Every time I think about drafting a secondary player, he's the first one that comes to mind, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe a veteran would be great," but just in this situation, yeah, I don't think a veteran's gonna move the needle enough
Yeah, we
unless
have
you
we
can
have
get
Mo
somebody like
Claiborne.
yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
unless
We
you
have
can
Mo Claiborne PTSD.
yeah, Mo Claiborne syndrome, yeah. But yeah,
And
unless you can get a guy like Woolen, I don't think that there's anybody out there that really moves the needle enough
yeah,
veteran
and
wise.
and with Tariq Woolen being top of the market, probably the best free agent corner coming out, and I could be wrong on that, there might be a name I'm not considering, but if he is the number 1 corner in free agency available, he's gonna demand
A
probably
lot of
at
money.
least what Deron Bland is making, but probably more, and, just because it'll be
And
a battle for him.
yeah, and I don't think that the Cowboys, the way they are, the way we've seen them spend money, our whole lives with Jerry Jones at the helm, I don't think that they would go for somebody like Woolen just because you're already paying Deron Bland. So in Jerry Jones's eyes, he's like, well, we've got our own Woolen and Bland.
Right.
All we
Yep.
need to do is build. It's like, no, we don't. He showed this year that he is not. He is not
Yeah.
the leader of a defense. He's not even the leader of the secondary. Like
Right.
he can't. He needs talent
Yeah.
around him, and he's a good player. But if there's no talent around him, he suffers.
What I wish would have happened is Trayvon Diggs came back and played better and looked like a competent cornerback, because then the ideal setup for this defense would be Trayvon Diggs, Siobhan Ravel on the outside, and put Bland back in the slot. He's being forced to play outside, and he can play there. He played pretty good there last year a lot of times when we needed him too. He can play outside, but he is best as a slot corner. And not only that, you're making him play a style of defense he's just not good at, zone coverage and all that. But if you put him back in the slot and let him use his shiftiness and speed, I think you'd see a completely different Deron Bland. I think it's because
Yeah.
A, he's been forced to play outside, and B, it's because he's been forced to play a scheme that just doesn't match him at all. So, but that obviously, I think we've seen enough of Trayvon Diggs. So he's got 2 more games to show us something different, but probably going to be moving on from Trayvon Diggs. So you're looking
Is
at
he
next
even
year. Go ahead.
is he even going to play?
I think he's gonna play. I mean, I haven't seen anything saying he's not, but I assume since they activated him and played him last week, they're probably gonna give him the rest of the season.
Right.
But he didn't play good last week, and I don't think much is gonna change with that situation. So you're going into next season with Deron Bland, Siobhan Revell, and Kalen Carson as your three corners on this roster. And I swear to God, if I see Reddy Stewart or if what's the other guy? Traquise Bridges, I think is his name.
Yes,
If I
Bridges,
see
yes.
those guys on the field next year, I might pull my hair out. And I'm not trying to be down those guys. They're not meant to be starters in the NFL. They're not meant to have to play as much as they played for the Cowboys, especially not this early in their career, which I'm not sure how old Reddy Stewart is, but they need more development before you put them on the field. But the Cowboys were forced in a situation where they pretty much had to start them a lot of games. So keeping those guys as your fifth, sixth corners on the roster is not a problem at all for me. But making them your third and fourth corner going into next season is just not an option if you want to have a real defense next year. So, you know, we'll see what they do with those positions. What I could realistically see happening is the Cowboys. Well, actually, let me pose you this question:
Okay.
if you're sitting there, let's say the Cowboys get lucky, maybe they lose their next two games and they're sitting around the 10th or 11th pick. Let's say the 11th pick. And for some reason, Arvell Reese falls to maybe the 6th or 7th pick. Do you trade both of your first round picks up to go get him?
No. No, and I only say that because then you're essentially trading Micah Parsons for Orville Reese and Quentin Williams. And yeah, that could be a great thing if he, because I think Orville Reese is going to be great. But if he's not, those are the types of moves that get you fired. And since our GM is also the owner,
He
it's
ain't getting
just
fired.
yeah, exactly. So it's like that's one of those types of moves that we've been seeing for 15, 20 years, and everybody's like, "Man, I just can't wait until, I hate to say it, but until somebody else." And obviously, the only way that's going to happen is if Jerry dies, and I don't wish death on anybody. Everybody, I can't wait till somebody else takes over or they hire an actual GM. Well, guess what? They're not going to. He's going to
Mhm.
be the GM until he dies or until
And then his
he's
son will take over and continue the same crap.
exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like though that's the kind of moves that we would have done, in the past 15 to 20 years, and I just don't think that's
Okay.
I don't know.
So
You're
let me
taking a
pose
chance.
you a
You're taking a big chance there, because
I
Aubrey
agree. I
Reese
agree with that.
could not pan out.
Personally, I would do that, and it's the draft is a crapshoot. You don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, we Jadeveon Clowney coming out of college was gonna be the next Lawrence Taylor, and he's panned out decently, but he has never been anywhere near that guy, right?
No,
Same thing with Chase Young. Chase Young coming out of college was supposed to be this elite pass rusher, and, these guys, as they get older,
he
they kind of
he's still young enough though that he has. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
mean
yeah.
to interrupt you, but Chase Young has shown that he has that ability, and he's still young enough that on the right team he could be a problem for people.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they're not gonna pan out, and Jadeveon Clowney's had a great career considering that
oh yeah,
he's still
yeah,
playing and he's still productive, but I'm just saying those guys were supposed to be your pass rusher for the next 15 years, right? That's what you
yeah,
drafted them
yeah.
for. You just don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, you can go back to Ryan Leaf. The guy was supposed to be a generational quarterback. You just never know what you're getting out of the draft. You just have to
Picked
see it
over
number
Peyton
1.
Manning.
Yeah, and you have to get in the right situation with the right coaching staff that can draw those talents out of you, exactly like Micah Parsons, because Micah Parsons was not drafted to be a pass rusher. Dan Quinn discovered he was a pass rusher through trial and error. And
Right.
so you don't know what you're going to get with Arvell Reese. He could be a bench player in 5 years, but more than likely, based off of what we've seen, he's been productive in college. I think he's going to be a star in the NFL. And the
I think
Cowboys
he's gonna
need a
be
star.
Parsons. I think
Yeah.
he's gonna be Parsons 2.0. Maybe not as explosive, when it comes to just, like, all-around production and stuff, but I think he's gonna be a game changer.
Sure.
Maybe not that one guy that every team tries to plan around the way that they did Parsons sometimes, but, I think he's definitely gonna be one of those guys that,
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you
like,
a
dynamic.
variation of that question, and then I'm gonna ask you a different one. So, first of all, is there any player that in that same scenario you would trade up for? Caleb Downs, anything like that?
So pose the scenario again, what was it? You said around 6 or
Yeah,
10? 6 or
yeah,
6 or
same
7?
situation. We're picking at 11, and for some reason, say Caleb Downs falls to, you know, 8 or 9. Let's just say he falls to 8, and the Commanders don't take him, but you're worried the next team will.
Yes.
Do you trade up for Caleb Downs?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, and I only say that because I feel like that the bigger change from this defense is gonna come from strengthening the secondary.
Okay.
I feel like we have one very viable pass rusher on the edge already that next year is going to be even better than what he was this year in Ezraku. So, and we can get by on that other side with having maybe a big run defender like Clowney or somebody like that to, hold down the other side and then have guys that rotate in, Sam Williams, all those guys. But if you replace Wilson or, somebody in the secondary with Downs, that is like going from a C plus player to an A player. You just you can't really
Potentially.
you
Yeah,
can't
potentially.
yeah. Yeah, potentially, yes.
Yeah, I get you.
But I feel like safety, when it comes to safety, I feel like he's kind of a lock, kind
Yeah,
of because he's in that realm of player like what with Micah Parsons and all those types of where it's like this one's kind of like a guarantee. He's going to be a high level NFL player. And safety, it doesn't really change much going from where he played in college, the school and the scheme he played for versus playing safety in the NFL. So I feel like we know what we're going to get from Caleb Downs, and there's not as much question around him as maybe some of the other guys.
yeah. Okay. All right, so another variation of that I wanna ask you, is there a scenario in which you would trade down and maybe try to get some extra draft capital?
Yes, I think that's honestly, in my opinion, in the way that I am, if I'm the GM, that's probably more likely than trading up to get a guy like Downs or somebody. Um, And I now let's not forget that I mean our window isn't open forever. So if you're trading down, you're still thinking that in the long run it's going to help you next year.
Sure.
Like it's we're not putting it off here, just by trading down. These guys that you get in the second or third round because you don't have a pick, but you trade down and get a pick in those rounds, those guys need to hit.
Yeah,
If that
I agree
second
with
and
that.
now if we can hit with that second and third round pick, then I feel like we're better off than what we would have been, with the two firsts. Trade one of them for, and replace those picks that we lost and maybe get a rotational edge rusher or a rotational linebacker with that trade. And then you have a full set of picks, and you got something out of it. So yes, I feel like trading down would be more likely. I couldn't give you a specific, detailed like situation, like who I would trade with and what players I would try to get with
Right.
those other picks. But just in general terms, I feel like trading down as long as if there's not a Caleb Downs or somebody that's going to be an immediate player that for sure is a hit, I feel like trading down and getting a second and third round pick would probably be a better deal.
Yeah, I like that. Honestly, if the Cowboys decide to stick with Tyler Smith at left tackle, sorry, and they decide they don't wanna spend any more picks on the offensive line, which is what I think they should do personally. I think that frees you up, especially if you have a good free agency and you get some solid veterans to surround your roster. I think I would use that first pick on McCoy. I think I would go get me a solid corner. Jermon McCoy, of course, he didn't play this year. He had the busted up knee and pretty
Mhm,
much sat this year out. But he was a lock to be the best corner in this draft. Kind of honestly what you would say about Siobhan Ravel, almost the exact same
mhm,
scenario. But I think Jermon McCoy's better. I think Jermon McCoy is that guy. I mean, of course,
yeah.
we thought that about Mo Claiborne too. But I'm just saying, if I'm looking at prospects, I think Jermon McCoy is the best corner in this draft
And where
if
does
he's
McCoy
healthy.
play at? I forget. Or
Tennessee,
did he where okay.
yeah, he was
I was about to
Tennessee.
say, if he plays for LSU, I don't want him.
We're scarred. We're scarred for life from
I know
LSU corners.
LSU is like DB University and they have a lot of great history but man, the one that we got was just did not pan out. So
That's true. Yeah. Well, so here's a scenario that I think would make sense. So let's assume the Cowboys have made the moves at left tackle. They're going to put Tyler Smith at left tackle. They're not going to address the offensive line with any premium picks.
Mhm,
I would like them to go get McCoy because I think he'll be ready. I think he tore his ACL in was it January last year? I can't remember exactly, but I think he'd be ready in the first half of the season. Again, I don't know that I like relying on a rookie who is also coming off a major injury to be your starting corner, but I think you could get by if you upgrade the rest of the defense enough in free agency that you could wait him out. So I'd like to see the Cowboys use that first pick on Jermod McCoy. unless he's being mocked to fall lower than that, which is possible. If you think you could snag him with that 26th or whatever pick, then go for it, right?
Not gonna happen.
But I think he's going to go in that first 15.
Yeah,
Go get Jamad McCoy and then see what linebackers available with that second pick. If there's not a premium linebacker left, you know, CJ, I think it's CJ Allen from Georgia.
yeah.
If you can't get Sonny
Anthony
Style,
Hill.
if you can't get Anthony Hill in there in that second first round, which honestly I think Anthony Hill might be a second round linebacker. Not that I don't think he's better than that. I just think that's where he's going to go.
Yeah, that's where he's predicted.
Right. You could get Anthony Hill at that second first round pick. I don't know if you should just out of
That
draft
may be
value.
that may be the trade back
Yeah,
scenario that I was
it very
talking
well
about. You
could
may
be.
trade back about 5 picks, get another second, and yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like him to get Jamon McCoy and then see what linebackers are available with that second pick. If there's not a premium linebacker that you feel like could step in the first year, at least by the second half of the season and be productive, then let's just trade back. At that point, let's
Mhm.
just trade back and move on. If for some reason you get Jamad McCoy with that first pick and Caden Proctor sitting there with that second pick, I think I'm taking Caden Proctor, man. I hate it because I just said I don't want to invest any more into this offensive line, but that kid is special, man. He's huge. I think he's like
Is that the
6'7",
Alabama
6'8".
kid?
Yeah, he's that
Yeah,
monster of a man. And, you know, if you tell me Caden Proctor sitting there at 24, 25, 26, I'm taking him.
yeah.
I would never look back. I don't know that it'll happen. He might go higher than that because you know how offensive line it's a premium in the draft, especially tackle.
Especially tackle. Yeah.
But if he's sitting there for some reason, I don't care. I don't care what else is going on. Your defense can suck. Just go protect Dak Prescott and let's put up 40 points a game. We'll figure out the rest on defense with a better coordinator. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
feel about it. But yeah, I wouldn't mind if say all the offensive linemen are gone and say all the premium linebackers that you like in the first round are gone. Let's just trade back. Let's go get a second, third round pick and let's cook a little bit, you know? So I don't know what their priorities will be. If so, let me give you this scenario. We're almost done with this stuff. I just want to throw this one more thing at you. Let's
Mhm.
say you're sitting at pick 12, 11 or 12, whatever, and Jermod McCoy is there, but so is David Bailey. Or you don't have to if you don't like David Bailey, let's just say one of those other premium pass rushers are there. Would you take the pass rusher or would you go Jermod McCoy?
Tremont McCoy. And the only way I'm taking the pass rusher in that situation is if it's Arbor Reese, and there's no way I think at this point that he drops to like.
Yeah, he's
And I
not getting
know
past
he's
the big
not.
8.
Yeah, and I know that he's not like a typical. He's kind of like the way Michael Parsons was. He can play stand up linebacker or he can rush the passer. I kind of envision him doing the same thing that Michael Parsons did, trying to do both. But some teams are going to be like, okay, you're probably better at this, so this is where we're going to put you. But yeah, if he's the one that is sitting there, yes. But
Okay.
if he's not, then I'm taking Jamad McCoy. Um, though I hate the risk with the injury and everything, and that you lost a whole year of game tape to see. But yeah, I'm probably taking Jamad McCoy just because of, like I said earlier, I feel like the secondary is our biggest issue. I know the secondary can be made better with a slightly better pass rush, boost the secondary as well. But it's clear that some of the guys in our secondary that if they're not being helped by great pass rushers, they're liabilities, and all liabilities need to be gone.
Okay. Alright, fair enough. I guess what it comes down to for me, the Cowboys need to set themselves up with a great free agency.
Hmm.
If they don't have to go get Trey Hendrickson, I'm not saying that I wouldn't mind that. I think if the Cowboys really wanna go win a Super Bowl, that's what they should do. I think they should go get an elite pass rusher to pair up with, Ezraku and that crazy good defensive interior, and I think your corners you can draft a corner in that situation. If the Cowboys are not gonna address pass rusher in free agency, I could see them going with a defensive end in the draft, and, I think that's a realistic possibility that we gotta prepare ourselves for. But again, I'm kinda with you on that. I think if you wanna win a Super Bowl this year, it's to me, it's not that hard. You got the offense. Just protect Dak Prescott and then spend all your resources on this defense. If that's pass rusher, if that's cornerback, if that's safety, I really don't care at this point. You just need some better players. And then you go get you a coordinator who can maximize those players. You know, I was listening to some guys talk about potential defensive coordinator candidates. I heard the name Todd Bowles thrown out there, which I wouldn't hate. Todd
Hmm.
Bowles to me is not a great head coach, but I think he is a great defensive coordinator. Some people are talking about Jim Schwartz. I think he's the Browns coach. He's another great defensive coordinator. Or if you really want to go crazy with it, man, throw the bag at Brian Flores. Throw the bag at him because you know what? I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that the Vikings defense is about the same amount of talent as the Cowboys. I think they have some better players than the Cowboys, but they're not world beaters, man. They don't have a Micah Parsons. You know, they don't have a Quinnen Williams in the middle. They don't have anything on that defense that stands out to you as like, "Oh, man, this is their guy." But their
Yeah.
defensive coordinator made them a top 5 or top 6 defense in the NFL this year, and he's done that his whole career, even with a terrible offense who puts them in bad positions over and over again. You can give Eberflus all the excuses you want, not talking about you, just in general. You know, a lot of people try to defend him.
Right.
I'm sitting here watching Brian Flores do it with maybe a little bit better talent, but not world beaters, and their defense is worlds better than ours. So if I'm Jerry Jones and I really want to win a Super Bowl, number one, go get Trey Hendrickson. Number two, throw the bag at Brian Flores. Pay him whatever he wants. You pay him more than you're paying Schottenheimer for all I care. And then you go draft a cornerback, you go draft a linebacker, and you roll. And this team has a chance at winning a Super Bowl. Again, I'm not trying to be a delusional Cowboys fan, but if you really want to win a Super Bowl, you make radical decisions like that. You have to go make real upgrades, not just do the same things and expect it to pan out differently.
And I feel like Jerry Jones knows that, considering his Super Bowl run came from him making one of the most notorious trades to ever, happen in football with that Herschel Walker trade. So the fact that you say that, if you want to win a Super Bowl, you've got to make, hard to make decisions. Like, I don't know where a GM like I don't know where we got into this situation of them being so conservative and never wanting to spend money on players. And they always think that they can just get by with the draft. And, we've gone 8-8 15 times in the past 20 years,
Mhm,
seems like. Like, it's just, I don't know. Considering the fact that the Super Bowls in the 90s came from a big splash trade,
mhm.
you would think that our GM would be more okay with making big
Yeah.
moves that are, hard decisions. But
Yeah,
that
and
hasn't been our thing.
if you want my opinion on that, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think it's the fact that Jerry Jones has to make it about himself, and that's obvious.
Yeah.
But what I really mean by that is I think Jerry Jones, he didn't get the credit for the last Super Bowls.
Nope.
And I think
Jimmy
what he
Johnson.
wants is to hire a Brian Schottenheimer kind of guy. Like, look, I'm the one who took a risk on this guy. He was never going to get a head coaching gig. I'm the one who hired Brian Schottenheimer and took a risk. And that's why we're special. And I think he also feels that way about a lot of players. He likes to take those sweetheart stories, those Cinderella story players that, man, if this guy works out, I'm gonna look like a genius. People are gonna love me for it. And he takes a lot of risks in that way, but he doesn't seem to be willing to just say, "Hey, you know what? We gotta get some dogs on this team, man. We can't," it's at
Which
some
they did
point.
back then. What was the name of that, that they like, another thing that it seems to have changed, was it Terrence Haley? That dude was a dog. Like,
Is
that
it Charles
dude
Haley? Is that you're talking about?
Charles Haley, yes. That dude was a dog, but he was also very controversial. He had had some big blow-ups with the Hunters, I believe. So, but Jerry Jones took a chance because he knew what type of player he was. He knew the dude was a dog, and it panned out. Like, without plenty of, I don't know if you watched the Jerry Jones documentary that came out months ago. Plenty of players and Jimmy Johnson have gone on record saying they don't win those Super Bowls without Haley.
Mhm.
So,
I
I
agree.
feel like I 100% agree, and I don't know, that's just another thing. I don't know where we got away from, having players like that on our squad. I'm not saying you want controversial players, you don't always want to be signing the guys that are getting in trouble and, giving their coaching staff trouble, but we also don't want to be as conservative as we have been.
I agree with that
So,
completely. Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. We'll be back next Thursday to discuss the latest news with the Jerry Jones Circus. So, yeah, follow us on all of our social medias. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. It's all going to be with the handle Keeping Up with the Joneses Pod. And we look forward to talking to you guys next week. And you guys have a Merry Christmas. Hopefully, everybody gets what they want for Christmas. No socks, no underwear. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
all right, thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.